I'm Michael Eager. I'm the local secretary of San Francisco Regional Mensa. We're happy to have you join us for our speaker series. Our two speakers, Tim Carlisle and Larry McClendon, are our speakers. They're going to explain the challenges of working in the District 10 Neighborhood Action Plan Equity Team on Hunters Point during the COVID-19 pandemic. And very briefly, Tim Carlisle is a IT director at San Francisco International Airport. He's got a number of other qualifications, a program quality director for District 4 Toastmasters, and quite a number of things. Larry McClendon is also at the Hunters Point Bayview Neighborhood Action Plan Equity Team. That's a mouthful.
It is.
And he's a development specialist at the Office of Economic and Workforce Development in, I presume, San Francisco. And with a long list of credentials, which I'm not going to read. So with that, I would like to welcome Tim Carlisle and Larry McClendon.
Awesome, Michael. Thank you. Let me make it really clear. Larry's my boss in this, but we're really good partners.
We're partners in crime. We're equal.
Something like that. So I think it's important that you understand who we are. So Larry, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you, Tim. Again, my name is Larry McClendon. I've been with the Office of Economic and Workforce Development with San Francisco for the last 5 years. And months ago, Tim and I were thrown in together to respond to inequities within the District 10 Bayview Hunters Point. For the last, I think, 9 months now, we've been working together with some other team members to really make sure that people have access to testing, vaccinations, and also other additional resources that are affecting environmental justice and safety. So go ahead, Tim.
Thanks. My name is Tim Carlisle, and I'm also in your organization as well as several others. My day job is I'm the project director of cybersecurity at San Francisco International Airport, which is a far cry from working in Hunters Point Bayview neighborhood with part of the District 10 Neighborhood Action Plan. We were thrown in this together. We did not know each other prior to becoming partners in crime, so to speak. And it's been a very interesting journey. When we started, and I'll let Larry jump in here, we were handed kind of an interesting situation where there was a project that was not going well. Our 6 community-based organizations partners were getting ready to walk away. And then they inserted the 2 of us. And I'll let you take it from here, Larry.
Thank you, Tim. And so to give a little bit of background, what the city had started to do is activate their employees. So most or majority of San Francisco government staff are disaster service workers, DSWs. So what happens is everyone is activated from multiple different departments from around the city. So this group in Bayview had already had 2 teams of DSW workers before Tim and I. And in those 2 teams, the first team helped them draft a really robust detailed plan on what was needed to serve the neighborhood. The second team fell a little short on implementing and delivering. And so the community group who was assembled, the Bayview Task Force, had been promised implementation, but it wasn't delivered upon. So Tim, unknown to us, when we first started, our first meeting, community folks is like, hey, I don't know what the hell you 2 guys are going to do, but the last set of fools did not do nothing for us, so we're ready to blow this whole thing up and walk away. And Tim and I, that was an eye-opener for us, because at that time we were like, oh crap, because we read this amazing detailed plan. Tim and I kind of went into it like, oh, they already know what they're doing. We should just come in easy peasy. And no, there was a lot of stuff that wasn't done. So Tim and I, instead of actually getting to work on the plan, we actually had to, build trust, because the trust within government and the DSWs to deliver was lost. So we spent the first couple of meetings building trust, understanding what needed to be delivered upon. And then once we got past that part of the barriers, we were able to get to work and start to deliver.
It's a really good point, Larry. And part of our learnings here was the good news was I've been a project manager for quite a while. And the other good news is that Larry is very good at that. And he already worked in the Hunters Point Bayview neighborhood in his regular day job. And both of those seem to be a real winner. We work with 6 community-based organizations. I want to describe them a bit. One of them is called Mother Brown's. It's what they do is they provide hot meals, showers, and services, including city services for people who are basically unhoused. And when we say unhoused, we're basically talking about homeless folks that are sleeping on the streets. We have Third Street Youth, which is folks they're an organization that serves people that are from 12 to 24 years old in a variety of ways. The SF Produce Market, which primarily is fresh food for folks in the Bayview neighborhood. Economic Development on Third, which is goal is to create a thriving and diverse economic corridor along Third Street. The Bayview Advocates, whose programs combine community organizing with education advocacy and direct services. They take an active role in mobilizing Hunters Point Bayview neighborhood on issues of environmental and economic justice. And finally, the San Francisco African American Arts and Cultural District, whose mission is basically to have a robust, vibrant Black community that adds to the rich cultural tapestry of San Francisco. Now, all that's a mouthful, but these 6 community-based organizations have been together for quite a while. They all stick together, and our initial focus with everything was really around the unhoused folks sleeping on the streets. And so the project that we rescued, and some of you may be familiar with this, had to do with something called a safe sleeping site. And basically what we did, and Larry can chime in as he'd like, is we found a safe, monitored area where we were able to have people that were sleeping on the street in potentially dangerous environments and encampments where all kinds of things could happen, and put them into a location near Mother Brown's, which has hot meals, showers, and services to help put them in a safer place. Because frankly, the COVID rate of folks that are in the Bayview is the highest in the city, especially among the unhoused folks. You want to add to that, Larry?
No, that was actually pretty good.
Okay. So that's where we started. And it took us a bit of time, and we had a lot of support. We were helped significantly by the Department of Emergency Management, the COVID Command Center, which has basically taken over a good deal of Moscone South, except where they're giving vaccinations as one of their maximum vaccination sites, and a lot of support from Supervisor Walton, who's the president of the Board of Supervisors, and his district is Hunters Point and Bayview, as well as the mayor's office and others. We got all that together. We were able to put that safe sleeping site together, and it was really amazing. We did this prior in probably November, I believe, right around October, November timeframe. And it was nice. It was clean. We made allowances for cold and nasty weather as best we could. And we were able to really help, I think, a significant amount of people. It included blocking off a portion of of Jennings Street. And we did a ton of back and forth, especially Larry, who is incredible and does an incredible amount of work. And it really helped a lot of folks. And the thing that was nice about it is we could even see signs of pride of ownership for people. And we found a way so that they could still keep the things that they did have with them. I'll hand it over to Larry and let him talk further if he'd like.
Absolutely. And the beauty or the secret in the safe sleeping sites that are set up within San Francisco are the thing that the public might not see, is that each and every individual who is enrolled in the safe sleeping site receives services. So otherwise they will maybe be sleeping on the street, unhoused, maybe in a tent. Definitely not in a vehicle for this particular site. It was a focus of individuals who were sleeping on the street. We bring them into this safe space. We give them supplies, clothing, shelter, and then city starts to interact with them to figure out what do they want. Do they want a permanent housing? Do they, where do they want to go? So these are kind of gateways for us to engage with people, meet them where they're at, and build upon of what their goals are. And quite frankly, the system has helped a lot of people. We're ranging around about 70% folks who would get into some sort of housing as a result of being a part of a safe sleeping site or a vehicle triage center. But the goal is to get folks into a safe place before we start engaging with them within the services that the city has to offer.
Yeah, Larry, and if anybody has any questions about that, we're happy to take them.
Can you describe these safe sleeping spaces? They're sheltered. Are they like dormitories, or what are you doing?
Actually, they are not. Basically, what we did is we closed a portion of a street, and we had platforms that are made out of a very special kind of wood with tents that are brand new tents and some other things like some heaters and a bunch of other things for people to live in. Now, we did this with a lot of forethought because we realize even that isn't going to always be super comfortable in the winter months. We had the ability for them to, like hot showers, hot meals, and services, and we're pretty successful in using this as perhaps a temporary site so we could get them into a more permanent one. We also had testing for COVID in that area and several other locations in the Bayview, which we'll probably talk about in a little bit. But we had toilets, additional toilets to what was at the Mother Brown's organization. And we also had, basically, I wouldn't call them guard, it's more like attendants and people just to help, solve any issues that we have. And then, just check people as they're going in and out, and not in a security guard way, but just simply to deal with any issues that may need to be dealt with. We also, as part of some of the other things we're working on, this was just the first project. And once that was put in place, part of the thing that has happened is as disaster service workers, like, we come from very different departments. I mean, I work at the airport. Larry works for Office of Economic Workforce Development. And we were able to also work with others. And we found out that there's an enormous need when it comes to having a testing strategy that works, as well as vaccines. And in Bayview, there are 3 primary communities: Latinx, African American, and I would say Asian Pacific Islander, but mostly, I think that's mostly people of Chinese descent. And, those 3 different disparate groups have different ways that they need to be contacted when it comes to testing, vaccination, everything, and rightfully so. And what we've been able to do is enlist some folks on our team that actually come from SFMTA and are from the Bayview neighborhood. And they've done a significant amount of outreach, as well as actually they will be stepping up and leading this doing a great deal of leading this project in the near future. But the safe sleeping site was handed over to the HS8, the Department of Homelessness, basically, which is a city department in San Francisco.
And then, Tim, can I add one more thing?
Absolutely.
One of the secrets to this site being so successful is one of the organizations that Tim talked about. Mother Browns is how they are known in the community, but United Council is the organization's name. And that is truly the magic of why this particular site in the Bayview kind of shines brighter than other sites in San Francisco. Mother Brown's feeds over 7,000 people a month, additional to the shelter, additional to the clothing, additional to the hot showers, lockers, and other subsidies that are provided. So when you have a great partnership on the ground, you just create this good recipe of just amazing outcomes and impacting folks' lives.
That is absolutely true. And all of the 6 community-based organizations have had a real focus for this project, and then all the other projects that we were continuing to work on. And Larry's right. I mean, that organization they just do a ton of work that's really needed in that community.
Martin asks, can local governments do these type of projects in the absence of NGOs?
Yes, we can. I think that it's always difficult for government to deliver kind of that granular special touch, especially when it comes to being culturally competent. A lot of you guys probably know, like, San Francisco is very diverse and very unique, and each neighborhood has its own flavor of kind of culture that requires a special touch. So ideally, government's perfect approach is to partner with CBOs who understand the neighborhood at the granular level. But absolutely we can, and we do have some sites that are 100% government ran. But the beauty about this particular approach is working directly with the community partners who know the neighborhood the best.
Yes, that is completely true. And one of the things that we have learned, at least I have learned, Larry probably already knew this, is just navigating the maze of organizations and groups and politics and everything in the Hunters Point Bayview neighborhood is certainly a interesting experience. And it's important to make sure that we try and bring everyone to the table so that we can help everyone, because that's what our task force is going to be. Is it's going to be something that, you know, works with the entire neighborhood to lift it up.
Thank you.
Sure. One of our other projects that we're working on is around Gilman Park and some of the other areas near the Candlestick Point State Park. Is there are, I want to say, I think 400 RV vehicles and things like that people are living in. Is that an accurate number, Larry?
That is correct. 400 plus different vehicles, combination of RVs and regular vehicles.
And we're working with the state parks, Assembly Member Chu's office, the mayor's office, and President Walton, who's the president of the Board of Supervisors and the supervisor for District 10. And we're working to develop a safe sleeping site for those vehicles over in Candlestick Point. And, you know, that has really been a interesting experience because we're really working not only with all of those government officials and agencies, but also our community partners to put a strategy in place and something that we can actually utilize probably for about a year. And we think that a year is what will likely be needed because that may be the pandemic may or may not be going on in a year, but we also realize that just to get everything back to normal is going to take some time. Larry, again, has done some really wonderful work just to get all these groups and people in the same room, I think.
Absolutely. And one of the elements of this new site that we're working on, it will serve over 110 vehicles if established, and it would also provide us to start servicing that area for vehicles for individuals who are living in vehicles. The goal is if we could actually make a dent in that 400 plus number and reduce that by 50% over 1 year. That would be a good milestone for us.
Yes. And some of the other unusual things that we've done is we have a pretty good sized team because we probably average on our weekly Zoom calls with just the Bayview task force, probably about 20 people. And we work with the Department of Public Works, and Sam Dodge over there has just done a fabulous job. We picked up, and it was a 5-day period, somewhere around 800,000 pounds of trash, working with the Department of Public Works and Recology. And it was a Herculean effort. And part of that reason is that a lot of times when the economy is tight, there's a lot of dumping that has gone on in the Hunters Point Bayview neighborhood from people that are either outside of the city of San Francisco or from other neighborhoods. And that has been an area of real concern. We resolved some of those issues, but there's always more to do in that area. So, we also did something called pit stops. And pit stops are basically porta potties with water manifolds that are attended by someone. And that was done, quite a few of those during the height of the pandemic, which I think it was 37, Larry. Is that the right number?
A total of 37 at its height, and over time it's been reduced to 21. I think today we're at about 16 different pit stops within the neighborhood.
And, but what that's done is it's reduced a lot of issues that could be a potential public health nightmare. And we put them in locations, and we've had a lot of success of removing a ton of trash from the streets because of those pit stops. And then we have stuff that's picked up there on a regular basis. There's been a lot of that. There's been a tremendous amount of value added by putting those pit stops out. The RV site is a real challenge, and we're looking forward to that. Should it get accepted, we know pretty much where that is at right now, and that's a kind of a pretty significant decision point. So regardless of that, we've done a lot of the legwork thanks to our community partners, who I don't know that we could do this without them. Just having that insight about what needs to be done. I mean, we would go to them at meetings and say, if we were going to put a pit stop out there, where would you suggest that we put it? And they really provide us a lot of great guidance and insight on how to do all of those things. Now we're going to talk about testing and vaccinations. And I'm going to turn it over to Larry here, and then we'll go back and forth. Are there any questions to this point?
The promise of launching that first safe sleeping site at Mother Brown's, what Tim and I really worked really hard on.
Martin asked, for a short time, there was lots of talk of an army of tracers. Is there effective tracing based on test results? What are the test results being used for?
Oh, you know what? That's actually a really good question.
It is.
And just kind of a little bit of insider baseball. That's something one of our colleagues always say. So what happened? The city of San Francisco knew that tracing is a very important part to this, and rather than kind of building the army of tracers within government and doing all of that, we partner, again, the same model, partner with community folks and funded CBOs to be the tracers. One, to deliver that cultural competency, making sure that we had tracers who can speak in many different languages. Two, a part of our tracing and service strategy is to make sure that if someone needs to quarantine, they actually have the resources that they need. So that's toiletries, food for 2 weeks, et cetera. So what's built into that funding is culturally competent tracers, 2 weeks worth of food, and 3 weeks worth of follow-up. And so that's kind of been our strategy, and that quote unquote army of tracers are actually being led by community representatives with a partnership with medical facilities who have a medical team member on each of those tracing teams.
Yeah, and just the language barrier sometimes is more than you would even imagine. Let me give you a perfect example of that. So we talked about one big part of our Hunters Point Bayview community being Latinx. Well, there's a whole subset of that organization that does not speak Spanish, and they speak Mayan. And finding Mayan speakers that can translate has been one of the tasks for our organization, to make sure that we can communicate with people and make sure that they have a good understanding of that. And we have at the COVID Command Center, there's a Joint Information Center. Does a great job. They translate many flyers that work for different languages, as well as things that would assist people in making sure that they get the actual facts of the vaccines. I mean, we've heard all kinds of different things, and we're very careful to make sure that what we do is something that gets the correct information out to our partners, so that we don't have a lot of misinformation.
You use the phrase CBO, that's community-based organization?
That
Yes,
is
it
correct.
Okay. Have a question here. A question in my mind. Many of these problems, I know that you're focused on COVID-19 pandemic issues, but many of these problems come from a lack of housing, a large homeless population. We have a moratorium on evictions currently, and sometime not too far away, the government is going to decide to end that moratorium. What do you anticipate happening?
Well, you're correct. There's lots of moving parts to this. So we also had shelter-in-place hotels for people who were were COVID positive. A lot of that, I believe, is gone, if I remember correctly, right, Larry? And we also there's organizations that are working with, where they're working to find a situation to help solve the people who are currently unhoused, and then also provide assistance to the folks that are in these difficult straits. And that includes the people that own those homes, and rent them out. One of the other things that's really been quite a challenge is figuring out how we're going to be able to serve all of those different communities or different groups of individuals. And while, yes, that moratorium will end, one of the things that I think the city and other agencies are working on is how they can resolve that to a successful conclusion for everyone. You have anything to add to that, Larry?
No, that's right.
If there are more questions, please send them to me. This has been very interesting. Another question I have is, you mentioned creating Google Forms to distribute. Are there similar programs in places like the Tenderloin, Market Street area, other impacted areas in San Francisco?
Yeah, so when we talk about the DNAP teams, which is the District Neighborhood Action Plan, almost every district in San Francisco has one, especially the ones that that have different needs. Not every single one. Some of them are, you have a lot of commerce where there's not people living there necessarily. So yes, that is something that's citywide primarily, and that is we just work in the one of the more challenging ones, districts in District 10, but they have them in districts throughout the city, including the Tenderloin and other neighborhoods as well. One of the things is that most of those neighborhoods, they have a fairly good infrastructure and a lot of community partners that can help with that. I mean, for example, in the Tenderloin, I believe Code Tenderloin is one of those organizations among many others. And they've all worked together well. Excelsior has another a team of CBO, community-based organizations and partners called Excelsior Strong, and many others. Latinx has their own task force. So yes, our team is actually going to, I don't want to say it would shrink a little bit, but some of our organizations have strong enough infrastructures to be able to pull back some of that. Whereas in District 10, we're going to be there for a while because they don't really have the infrastructure, although we continue to try and add to that so we can benefit the community over the long term.
Okay, we're coming up on the end of our conversation. We have two more questions and we'll make those the last ones. Baron asks, what's the estimated number of unhoused in San Francisco and how many safe sleeping areas are there?
I've been to a number. I don't know the exact number of safe sleeping areas. What I do know, and I don't know the exact number of homeless people in San Francisco, I know that about 40% of those individuals and families happen to reside in the Hunters Point Bayview neighborhood. I think that's right, isn't it, Larry?
That is. It might be a little bit higher. And I don't think that we've done an active count citywide in a while due to COVID. We've been really just focused on outreaching, getting folks into permanent housing. So we don't have those updated numbers yet.
And the last question is perhaps longer range than your current view. Martin asks, for a while there was a shortage of nurses. Is there a hope for providing long-term employment for more nurses so they are available for the next pandemic? And I really don't want to think about the next pandemic.
Me neither. I don't want to think about it either. Absolutely. So our workforce division at the Office of Economic and Workforce Development has actually will be supporting a long range training program in the area of healthcare. Everyone sees how important it is not only to have as many nurses and healthcare staff when things like this do come up, and hopefully we don't see another kind of pandemic for another 100 years, but being prepared. I think one of the big things, especially for government, lessons learned is to be prepared at all times for multiple different things. And there was a steep learning curve when we had to respond in this way. And it really illuminated a lot of infrastructure things that could have been improved on in the past, including making sure that our hospitals and nurses are within demand, and that we have enough staff to respond to the population that those hospitals are designed to serve.
Excellent. And with that, I want to thank Tim Carlisle and Larry McClendon for a very interesting talk about COVID-19 and Hunter's Point and their efforts in that area. We will be posting the recording on this on our YouTube channel, www.sfmensa.org/YouTube. And let me ask for a round of virtual applause, waving your hands for our speakers. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.